Former Senior Assistant General Secretary of the RMT Union, Steve Hedley. Steve, over Christmas, striking over Christmas, is that really proper?
Well, look, people don't want to lose money by going on strike at any time of the year, and it's not a decision that's been taken lightly. But the fault for this strike lies squarely with the government, who have not only not helped, but have been an absolute obstacle to any sort of negotiations. They've tied the hands of the companies, Network Rail and the train operating companies. They've not allowed them to negotiate. They've set limits on their negotiations. And we have a situation where, you know, the whole country's in chaos. And what I have to say to every worker out there, it's not nice not being able to travel around at Christmas. There are bigger things at stake. Your whole National Health Service is at stake. You know, this is a government that's waging an ideological class war on workers, and has been doing so for 10 years. So I would encourage every worker, whether they're in the union or not, to support the nurses on strike by actually taking strike action themselves.
It seems from the polls that public support for these train strikes is ebbing away a little bit. It's lower in December than it was in November, and now only 30% of the public are in support. Is that a bit of a problem for the unions?
Well, I mean, obviously, when there are strikes, no one likes not being able to travel around the country and at their convenience. And public support will go down. But ultimately, public support doesn't win disputes. If it was public support, the nurses would be on a hell of a lot more money, and the politicians would be probably on the minimum wage. Ultimately, it's the industrial power that matters. So, yeah, I wouldn't dismiss public support, but it's industrial strength that matters. And that's why I think every worker needs to be fighting for our National Health Service right now.
Of course, industrial strength matters, but don't pennies and pounds matter too? 40% fewer people are now commuting on the railways than did before the pandemic. There's less money going into the railways, and there's an inflationary environment whereby people are asking for higher wages despite less money coming through fares. How does the economics of that possibly add up?
Well, because we have a crazy system that funds the railways. We don't have the companies actually making a profit to fund the railways. What we have is subsidies to private companies. For example, the rolling stock companies, which deal with all the trains and rent them to the train operating companies, paid out $100 million during COVID when no trains were running to their shareholders.
Well, they paid a lot of money to those people working on the railways as well, keeping people in jobs.
Actually, the government did that. The companies didn't pay that. The government paid that. So what we have is a system where hundreds of millions are getting paid out. People haven't had a pay rise in 3 years. People's real terms earnings has gone down by over 20%. And people just aren't having it. They're fighting back, which workers are doing all over the country, and I applaud them for it.
But where's the money going to come from here?
Well, the Tories will have to stop giving their friends huge tax hikes and loopholes where they can stick their money offshore. They'll have to stop funding wars. There's always money for war, isn't there? There's always billions of pounds to send to the Ukraine so Russians can kill Ukrainians and Ukrainians can kill Russians. But we need a change. We need a change in the absolute society and the economic system we're living in. We can no longer have this system of capitalism which is geared for profit, which is killing the planet. By the way, the rich know this is going on. That's why they're buying up tracts of lands in New Zealand.
Is there a reason, though, why rail workers should be prioritised for this pay rise? There isn't an ongoing pot. And the median pay for rail workers is over $37,000, which is far higher than the average wage in the country. Why should rail workers be prioritised?
Well, they shouldn't. That's why we should have a general strike. We should have a general strike, not just to change the government, but to change the system. Because every worker out there who's been hammered since austerity, since the banks went belly up, and of course, the bankers haven't paid the price for that. It's working class people. That's what we should do. And every worker out there should be fighting for a pay rise as well, and to change the system that we're in.